Welcome to footballgameplan.com, where football makes sense. I'm Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook. Bring you our NFL Week 12 preview between the Carolina Panthers and the Miami Dolphins. Now let's take a look at some keys to victory for both teams, starting with the Panthers.
Carolina travels down to Miami to take on the Dolphins, and here are some coaching points for both teams in this ballgame. For Carolina, they want to get the running backs involved in a short and intermediate passing game with those darts, those arrow routes, maybe some option routes, some crossers. You want to involve the backs in the passing game. That way you can have some success. And you want to make defensive plays in space. Miami loves to spread the field and attack the slots to the hashes. You have to be able to make plays in space if you want to knock off the Dolphins. And I would take chances in the secondary. The Dolphins don't threaten deep down the field, so you can get aggressive in your short area coverages to try to come away with an interception or a pass breakup. And for Miami in this ball game, I would make this a horizontal game. They have a lot of speed on offense, and it also helps combat and minimize the downhill pressure that the Panthers bring. And it ties into my second point. You want to beat them with speed. Mike Wallace, Lamar Miller, Marcus Thigpen, even Ryan Tannehill getting on the perimeter. I think they could have some success offensively if they utilize that speed they have at their disposal. And the interior defensive line must get penetration. It's imperative versus a power running team like Carolina that they get pressure from within. And if they can do that, they can slow down the Panthers' ground game. But I like Carolina in this ball game right now. They're playing on fire. They're playing some great football on both sides of the ball, and I think they'll do a great job of taking care of business down there in South Florida. Now let's move up to the AFC North, where Pittsburgh takes on Cleveland. And for the Steelers in this ball game, they have to work the tight ends very early in this matchup. That way you can force the Browns to be less aggressive defensively. And the best way you can do that is by getting those tight ends involved very early. And the offensive tackles, that's Gilbert, Beachum, Adams, they have to excel in a running game. That's sealing the edge and climbing to the second level so the Steelers can get that ground game going. And the front seven plus Palomalu must stay busy, and that's with pre-snap movement, post-snap zone blitzes, and overloads. They have to find ways to get pressure on that Browns offense, and I think they can have success if they're busy pre and post-snap. And for the Browns in this ballgame, I would go with 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end, 1 running back as my base set. You want to keep it in the spread so that way you can identify the individual matchups and take advantage. You can also have better chances to get your ground game going with the inside zone. And on defense, push versus pressure, especially versus a guy like Ben Roethlisberger that can extend plays with his legs, and especially with speed rushes on the outside like Barkevious Mingo. And the cornerbacks have to excel in press coverage. That's Joe Hayden and Buster Screen. Getting Big Ben to hold on to that football just a little bit too long will ensure the Browns be able to get back there and put him on the ground. I like the Steelers in this ball game. I believe Pittsburgh is finally starting to get it offensively, and on defense, they're now starting to get pressure on the quarterback. And I think both will bode well for these guys on the road versus their hated rival, the Cleveland Browns. Next, we have a huge game in the NFC between the Chicago Bears and the St. Louis Rams. And for Chicago in this ballgame, they have to stay on pace offensively. Don't get outside the framework of your offense. You run inside-outside zone. You run those crossers and come back. Stay within your offense. You can have success on the road. And Josh McCown's internal clock has to be moving. He has to get rid of the football quickly and always step up and not back into the pocket when you're facing a team that can't get after the quarterback like St. Louis. And the slot defenders versus Tavon Austin, they have to be ready to play. They cannot get beat on option routes, but they also have to be physical and get a hand on him in order to disrupt what he wants to do offensively. And for the Rams in this ballgame, they're going to be playing above the rim defensively, so they have to stay inside of these bigger wide receivers and wall them off so that way they're in position to make a play on the ball. And that's the cornerbacks I'm speaking of. And the backside defender has to close the door. You can't allow the cutback versus Chicago. That is a staple of their ground game, with Matt Forte seeing the cutback lane and cutting it back across the grain. So you have to close the door on the backside. And you want to attack the safeties in the passing game. Work the middle of the field. Find matchups for both Cook and Kendricks and take advantage of them. I think that's where the Bears are weakest at the safety position. I like Chicago in this ballgame. This is still a very dangerous football team, despite some of the losses they've had defensively. Offensively, they can put points on the board, and I think their defense versus Kellen Clemens in that passing game will do just fine in slowing down the Rams' offense. I like the Bears to go on the road to knock off St. Louis. Now here's a game between the Jets and the Ravens that has a lot of playoff implications, and for the Jets in this ball game, they can't beat themselves. That's with the turnovers, the penalties, the mental mistakes. They have to clean up the mess if they want to be successful. And on offense, they have to take shots downfield early. I would go for the home run ball very early in the ball game, and even after halftime, try to get a big lead or a quick lead so that way you can play defense and also play ball control offensively. And Antonio Cromartie and D. Milner, they can't get lax in their coverage. The Ravens love to run combo routes. They love to run double moves, so they can't get lax. They can't get caught peeking in the backfield. Otherwise, they're going to find themselves giving up a big play or a touchdown. And for the Ravens in this ball game, you want to take advantage of the Jets' over-aggressiveness on defense, and you can do that with the screen game, maybe the misdirection running plays. I think they can have some success by utilizing those two examples versus that over-aggressive Jets defense. And I would overload pressure versus Geno Smith. You want to force the quick and short throw, rally up, make the tackle, get off the field. And on defense, you also want to slow down the sprint draw. That's the staple of the Jets running game, and that would also put them in second and long, third and long situations, which would be favorable for your defense. I like the Ravens in this ball game. Despite the weird, wacky game last week versus Chicago, I believe this is a team just like Pittsburgh that's starting to get it and starting to come around. So I think they'll take care of business at home versus a Jets team that can't get out of their own way. The Titans travel out west to take on the Oakland Raiders, and for Tennessee in this ball game, they have to win at the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. In my opinion, that's going to be key. They excel on defense along that defensive line getting pressure, but on offense, they have to become more consistent in blowing people off the ball. And they have to confuse the rookie McGloin with multiple looks on defense, both pre and post snap. You want to influence bad decisions. And they have to feature Chris Johnson, and that would allow Ryan Fitzpatrick to play more of second fiddle, which would be better for the offense. That way he can operate off play action. That way he'll find better plays downfield throwing the football. And for the Raiders in this ball game, you want to keep it simple for Matt McGloin. That minimizes mistakes and also maximizes execution. He did a great job last week versus Houston. I think he can excel once again if they keep it simple for him. Now on third down, they have to excel. Early stops on defense aids in putting a team away. So if they can excel on third down, they can win this ball game versus Tennessee. And they want to master the details, getting in and out of the huddle. Great situational football, understanding where you are and where the sticks are. Those are the little things that the Raiders have to master if they want to be successful. I like the Titans in this ball game because of their ability up front to get pressure on the quarterback and their ability on the flanks to pressure opponents' wide receivers. I think that's going to slow down that Raiders offense, and offensively I think they will feature Chris Johnson and get him more involved in the offense. So I like the Titans to win this one going away versus Oakland. Big battle in the desert as Arizona plays host to Indianapolis, and for the Colts in this ball game, they have to find an offensive rhythm very early. The Colts don't start a game very well offensively, and if they get off to a slow start versus Arizona, they could lose this ball game. And Andrew Luck must avoid late throws. Arizona has a secondary, the guys on the corners, and at safety that can make plays on the ball, and those what could be interceptions will turn into interceptions versus this Cardinal secondary, so he has to protect the football and not be late on his throws. And I will go tight on the outside and pressure on the inside. You want to force Carson Palmer to be accurate consistently throughout the game and stand tall in the pocket, and you can do that by locking down those wide receivers on the outside, playing press, and forcing him to be decisive and quick with his throws. And for the Cardinals in this ball game, motion loosens up pressure. I would always stay moving on offense. That's what motions with the receivers or the backs or even formation shifts. You have to stay moving to loosen up that pressure. It forces the defense to tip their hand just a little bit pre-snap. And you have to break tendencies on both sides of the ball. The Colts know this offense very well, as Arians was the coach last year for Indianapolis. So you have to break tendencies to give these guys the element of surprise, both defensively as well as offensively. And you have to finish versus this Colts football team. You have to get a lead and keep a lead, and you can add to that lead by winning in all facets of the game. That's offense, defense, and special teams, and that's how you can have success. I like the Cardinals in this ball game. I think their offense will maximize on those opportunities that the Colts give teams early in the ball games by starting slow. I think the Cardinals passing game will be a lot to handle for Indy, so I like the Cardinals to take care of business at home versus the Colts. Huge battle in the NFC East as the Cowboys take on the Giants, and for Dallas in this ball game, they have to get back to early season success. Now it's when they were balanced on offense and fundamentally sound on defense. If they can do both this game, they'll come away victorious. And they have to excel in nickel defense. Remember, they're going to be without Sean Lee for the rest of the year. The linebackers in particular have to maximize their opportunities out there in nickel defense, because they'll see a lot of spread versus the New York Giants. And I would turn up the heat on Eli Manning, and Eli under duress is an inaccurate and ineffective Eli. That's your best chance to win defensively. And for the Giants in this ball game, execution is vital. Tom Coughlin preaches execution because it outweighs talent. Doesn't matter if you have the talent. If you can't execute, you're going to lose a lot of football games. And I would also bracket Dez Bryant and send pressure from his side of the field. That would force Tony Romo to go away from his biggest and most dynamic playmaker. And the offensive line cannot have an off day. They can't let this be the day the Cowboys find their pass rush, because that's just going to derail everything the Giants want to do offensively. I like the Giants in this ball game. They're on a winning streak for a reason. They have righted the ship. They're starting to execute better offensively, and now the pass rush is starting to get it going. I think they'll do a great job in harassing Tony Romo. So I like the Giants to move forward ahead of the Cowboys in this ball game. A huge matchup in the AFC Sunday night as the Broncos take on the Patriots. And for Denver in this ballgame, they're going to have to keep the Patriots defense guessing. I'm pretty sure the Pats will come into this ballgame with a heavy focus on the passing game, and that's just going to open up the running game for Denver. So I look for them to lean on the running game a little bit more very early in the ballgame. And I would pass guys off in the secondary. The Pats do a great job of attacking vacated areas, so don't follow crossers across the field. Pass guys off and trust in your personnel to make plays. And I would blitz early in the down and distance. You want to take chances in forcing a second and long. That way you can get even more aggressive and get these guys off the field later on in the down and distance. And for the Patriots, you can't be hesitant to throw the football over the middle of the field. Raheem Moore is out, so the safeties, in my opinion, are most vulnerable. So I would look for these guys to attack the middle of the field very early, throwing the ball. And I would play inside the box with the running game, power versus speed. The Broncos have a lot of speed defensively at the second level. Run downhill and combat that with power. And you have to win the possessions battle. That also means maximizing your opportunities with points. You have to come away with points versus a team like Denver that can really light up the scoreboard. I like the Broncos in this ballgame. I think what you'll see from Denver is a more well-balanced attack. Very early in the game, I think they'll run the ball, but later on, they'll be able to spread the field and attack the individual matchups in the passing game. So I like the Broncos to knock off New England in Foxborough. And finally, Monday night, we have two teams trying to get back on the winning track. We have the 49ers taking on the Washington Redskins. And for San Francisco in this ball game, I look at that offense and I look at Vernon Davis. He has to get isolated by formations, whether it be twins with him on the backside or spread with him flanked as a wide receiver. They have to isolate Vernon Davis and take advantage of the matchup. And you want to roll coverage toward Pierre Garçon, take away his #1 receiving option, and that way you could have some success in the inside linebackers versus the outside zone. If the gap is there, you have to take it to make a play at or behind the line of scrimmage. And for the Redskins, I would keep it traditional on offense. I would actually scrap the read option and only utilize it situationally, whether it be in short yardage and goal line, red zone opportunities. That's when you want to bring out the read option. Otherwise, keep it traditional on offense. And the defensive line has to win up front. They're going to see a lot of power. They're going to see a lot of counters, and they have to win at the line of scrimmage to slow down the ground game of San Francisco. And on defense, the safeties have to stay in their responsibilities when they're playing cover 2. They cannot vacate the hash until the ball is thrown. Otherwise, you're going to give up big plays deep down the field in the passing game. I like San Francisco in this ballgame. Their defense right now is still one of the best in the game, and I think they'll do a great job slowing down what Washington wants to do, running the football and also throwing the ball. So I think the 49ers defense will be the